Greetings, brothers and sisters. So if you saw my first video I made yesterday, I started off the video by saying it was nice not to have to wake up and make a video about either Bob Saget or Alec Baldwin, right? And so it featured a story about Kanye West. He was appeasing his wife after a sort of Super Bowl Instagram meltdown, and that story was fizzling out. And so it looked like it was going to be a mild day. And then one of my viewers sent me an Instagram post by Hilaria Baldwin, and I started making a video about that, and the comment video as well, which is up, a second video. And then the story broke that Hal and the Hutchins family was going to sue Alec Baldwin and released an animation that was supposed to describe what happened, and it didn't jive with Alec's official story. And so I had an Alec Baldwin video then. And then tonight, now I'm going to release this video tomorrow, but before I went to bed, one of my friends on Facebook and then someone on Instagram sent me this headline. And it says, Bob Saget's family files lawsuit to block release of records from his death investigation. The family of Bob Saget has filed a lawsuit to block the release of records from the investigation of his sudden death, court documents show. On Tuesday, Saget's wife, Kelly Rizzo, and 3 daughters filed a lawsuit against the medical examiner's office and the Orange County Sheriff seeking injunctive relief to prevent the release of any records, including photographs, video, and audio recordings and statutorily protected autopsy information related to his death. Plaintiffs will suffer irreparable harm in the form of extreme mental pain, anguish, and emotional distress if the defendants release the records in response to a public records request or otherwise disseminate the records for any other reason or purpose, the lawsuit stated. And so, legitimate privacy interests. So for me, there's one reason and one reason only why they're not releasing, particularly the photos or any video, because if the general public and Full House fans and even the dysfunctional media saw Bob Saget's face, they would say, no way. Like if they saw what condition he was in terms of the fractured skull, they would say there's no way that happened from a bump on the head and a slip and fall in a hotel room. That there's enough evidence that there's obviously some sort of cover-up here. I mean, the official story is that all this information and data that media personalities or media agencies are asking for would somehow, the release of it would trigger the family because it would be an ongoing story and, whatever, right? And that there are some things that the family doesn't want out in the public. And that means there's sensationalistic, even that version of the story means that there's sensationalistic photos and things, which we know because the guy, he was effed up, right? This is like someone who's been in a car crash, like a closed casket type of a funeral. And so, he had black panda eyes, his whatever it was, right? If you looked at Bob Saget, you would say there's no way. There's no way he slipped and fell in the hotel room and got that kind of severe damage from his, whatever they were saying that happened internally to his brain and hemorrhaging and fractures of his skull. It's going to be showing up on his external corpse, right? His body is going to, there's going to be contusions and bumps and all these things are going on. There's his face, blood. There's going to be things. And so when they show you the condition of the crime scene, there's no way people will believe the official story that's been released now. And even this video from ABC News that's connected to the article, it's from a couple of days ago, it's just not believable. Like they're trying to believe in the official story, but they really can't keep a straight face here, right?
Injuries likely suffered in an accidental fall. TJ Holmes has the details. Good morning, TJ.
Good morning to you, George. And the family wanted to be the first to let the public know this week that Bob Saget died of head trauma. But now we are seeing the full autopsy report. And look, some of these details are difficult to hear. Bob Saget hit his head so devastatingly that he actually...
He was such a klutz. He was so uncoordinated. He had one of the most catastrophic falls in history in his hotel room. You know, like, I mean, it's a fall of the ages, right? He bumped his head in a way no one's ever bumped their head before. Like, what a, like some sort of, comedy bit. So there's this kid in the first treatment center I worked in. It's funny, I've been talking about this for the last couple of days for whatever reason. And this kid grew up in a hellish environment. His family was just so messed up. He suffered like horrific abuse, but he was kind of like an innocent farm boy with this like dark, traumatic stuff that happened to him. And he was on multiple meds, like lots of meds. And he was overweight, almost obese. And that, I think, had to do with the meds. I don't know, of course, he was in institutions. He was about 12 or 13, and he was probably institutionalized already for, 5 or 6 years, right? And he was really uncoordinated, and some of that had to do with the meds. And so we were playing kickball. The whole unit was playing kickball. And so these kids are like 10 to 14 years old. Some of them are good athletes, right? But this kid, we had to roll the ball at a snail's pace, like it was barely moving. And like, the pitcher, whoever was pitching, some staff got real close to him so he could kick the ball, right? Because he was so, messed up and whatever, uncoordinated and on all these heavy duty meds. And so he goes to kick the ball and he somehow misses the ball completely. And his foot comes back over the ball, and it was going so slow, his foot ended up on top of the ball, which made his other foot come off the ground. And so he was standing on the ball for like, half a second. And then he fell down because the ball was rolling, and he landed on his knee. And, both knees, but one knee was worse than the other. It ripped his pants, and blood came like gushing out of his knee, right? And I looked at, we looked at each other, the staff members. They were like, holy, like that was the most uncoordinated thing I'd ever seen in my life, right? And it was nothing compared to what Bob Saget suffered, right? This was a kid who's, psychologically messed up. He was going to be institutionalized the rest of his life. And he had all this traumatic past history, and he didn't suffer anything close to what Bob Saget did, right? Of course, he didn't hit his head, but I mean, it would take some catastrophic events for somebody to have, a head injury from a slip and fall in a hotel room. It's just not believable, right?
Actually fractured his skull in several places, and this all happened while he was.
It's just not believable, and so, it's just how long this story was going to hold up. And whether there was going to be any media giants, any of the mainstream media that was going to pursue this. Those were the two questions. Because the story is like, it's like a card house ready to collapse. So as of right now, there's two things out there. One is I searched Bob Saget cover-up, and it says here, Bob Saget's autopsy sparks new questions, conspiracy theories. And then one of my viewers sent me this morning from Inside Edition.
With the details of how Bob Saget died now revealed, the confusion over how such a blow to the head could have happened and caused such severe injury has only increased.
Because the story is just not believable. And it doesn't take somebody who in the truth community, these are, for dopes who are watching Inside Edition, like even they know that there's something fishy going on here.
There are calls for the investigation into Bob Saget's shocking death to be reopened. Several prominent doctors say Saget's catastrophic multiple head injuries could not have been caused by a simple fall, as investigators say.
Then it says here, fans want Bob Saget's death investigated again. And so, I've already showed you one doctor who was on YouTube, and then they have their own here. Even the doctor they had on CNN who would be prone to go with the official story, said it must have taken multiple blows to the front and the back of the head to cause this. So, I mean, no one's reading the autopsy and going, wait, he bumped his head? And when they first told us about what happened, they didn't release the autopsy, and they made it sound like he had a bump in the head. So even that there's just being deceptive, right? They didn't say he had multiple fractures and, oh, he bumped his head and went to sleep and died. Okay. Right? And so the last couple of days, it's been a huge news cycle. So last night, Alec Baldwin was released that, I did a video on this, that the family of the cinematographer were suing him, and they were disputing his story that he gave in that interview with George Stephanopoulos. And then this story broke with Bob Saget. It's being covered by, multiple mainstream media outlets with his family and this, alleged cover-up. Of course, World War III could be possibly happening here. Biden warns of risk to U.S. economy from fallout if Russia invades Ukraine. And then from this morning, how Putin's war could cost Biden with American voters. And then CNN executive Allison Goulast, woman in relationship with ex-chief Jeff Zucker, resigns. So this Goulast woman has quit. This was from this morning. Chris Cuomo fired after CNN learned of alleged sex attack during office lunch report. And so there's a temp worker, he was married at the time, and he asked her he propositioned sex during a lunch in his office. And so that's what they're releasing information to do damage to his lawsuit and wanting $59 million, $60 million. He wants Megyn Kelly money. And the Olympics is going on, and there's a scandal in the Olympics, and the Super Bowl just happened. And so there's a lot of things going on, right, in the world. Tara Lipinski and Johnny Weir's nearly silent protest during Kamila Valileva's skate said it all. So there's a young Russian 15-year-old girl who, I'm not covering this here, but she tested positive for banned substances, but she's being allowed to compete, and everybody, Russia has a history of cheating, all these things, right? And so all these things are going on. Then the Kanye West had a meltdown as well. Things I'm going to get to that. I have a little clip of, some new details, right, from his latest Instagram post. And then there's this. Prince Andrew settles sex abuse suit with Virginia Giuffre for an estimated $12 million. So of all of these stories, here's the picture of them together. This is when she was 15. This is Ghislaine Maxwell, right? And so it said right here that in an unsigned letter submitted as an attachment to the settlement filing, Andrew said he accepts Giuffre suffered as an established victim of sex abuse, but does not admit any wrongdoing. Prince Andrew has never intended to malign Miss Giuffre's character, and he accepts that she has suffered both as an established victim of abuse and as a result of unfair public attacks. Prince Andrew regrets his association with Epstein and commends the bravery of Miss Giuffre and other survivors in standing up for themselves and others. And so this guy is such a wonderful man. He gave this victim $12 million that even though he did nothing wrong, right? I think we should all sue him because he didn't, abuse any of us, but he's handing out $12 million to anybody who does. There's no admission of guilt here, right? And so, if there's one scandal that it's breaking at the right time because he's the Queen's favorite son. And so if there's, some sort of intentional manipulation of the story, it's lucky for him all these other things are going on, right? And I'm not saying that, all these other things have to do with that, but they could be. Okay, so let's go to the Kanye thing. So this is Encyclopedia Brown in the case of the disappearing Instagram posts. He has 2 Instagram posts after having a 20-post rant on the Super Bowl Sunday in which he talked about controlling his own narrative, and it was okay to post so many times. But this is his picture of him on a concert floor, and he says, "I've learned that using all caps makes people feel like I'm screaming at them." That's a great sentence. "I'm working on my communication. I can benefit from a team of creative professionals, organizers, and mobilizers, and community leaders. Thank everyone for supporting me. I know sharing screenshots was jarring and came off as harassing Kim. I take accountability. I'm still learning in real time. I don't have all the answers. Come on, Kanye. To be a good leader is to be a good listener. And there's some celebrities who have responded here. And so he's kind of reversed his position and calmed down from his going full Kanye. So we should now know that 2022 isn't going to be better than 2021, right? You know, the COVID thing is going away, but now we have World War III, and it just seems like there's something dropping every day, and it's a chaotic time, right? So I started to make this video last night. I've done a bunch of comment videos lately, and it spurred more comment videos. And it's interesting that, and I've talked about in the past how like the comments, the negative comments, and the trolling and things doesn't really bother me. Like emotionally, it's not, you know, a big deal in terms of like the personal attacks or just, you know, whatever it is, like just the negativity. But it's negative energy, and that affects me, you know, in a way that you can't do anything about. Like when people dump negative energy on you, you just have to, you know, deal with it. And it's just the price you pay for being on social media. And last night, you know, like I said, I started making these videos, and I did a voiceover. I haven't listened to it yet. And I always am a little suspect at my voiceovers and things I do, like, you know, at night, you know, because I'm tired and maybe in a, you know, whatever kind of a mood I might be in. So I have to re-listen to that. And if, you know, if you're hearing this, then it's attached to this video. But I was thinking about this, you know, how for all of you, it's like you're listening to this as an individual. Maybe you have, you know, somebody else, a spouse, you listen to my videos or anybody's videos, but just, you know, my videos because it's specific to what I'm talking about here. And so you're perceiving it in a different way. You're having an individual experience to what I say. And that's reflected in the comments. For me, I make these videos. I'm by myself. You know, my dogs are here, you know, most of the time. But, you know, sometimes I'm just here talking to myself and giving my views on things and whatever God shows me, whatever, you know, my spiritual process is. You know, I had a comment yesterday. I should have saved it, but the person said, so you're saying to me God told you to make Bob Saget videos? You know, but if you're connected to God and you have an internal relationship with God, it's going to, you know, your opinion on any subject is going to have that in it, right? It's going to be there's going to be spiritual, you know, a spiritual perception of anything that you deal with, right? But that's a sort of a hostile and simplistic way of undermining, you know, what I'm saying here, right? In terms of the need for me to cover celebrity topics and world events because people don't really care about God and aren't interested in a solution. Most people are just caught up in the drama. But anyways, I'm talking to myself and I make these videos and then they go out and people react. And each individual writes either a positive or negative comment, doesn't understand that what I'm experiencing when I read the comments is, you know, everybody as a group, right? Like you could go to a concert and you're there with everybody and you're having an experience as a group. But when you watch these videos, and this is, you know, the age of the internet and social media, you're having an individual experience or, you know, maybe one or two people in your house or whatever, and you're having that experience and then you think you're having experience, like almost like a conversation with me, and are reflecting it back. But in terms of the negative comments or, you know, it's just not to this video. It's just over time. And I'm not talking about negative comments that are just, you know, hostile to me or whatever. Trolling. It's the comments that are just sucky. And I see it on a regular basis. And I ban people. And I feel like I have a more intelligent audience. I think people move on from my videos like cubies and, you know, some of the people that are, you know, dummies. The dummies don't stay. But if I went to other people's, like there are people making crappy, you know, Illuminati video, you know, just they're stuck in making videos that were from 10 years ago. There's a lot of truthers that don't move on from things. They don't evolve, and a lot of people producing bad content. And the overall sort of sense I get from the truth community is it's just sort of missed the point. It's become something, that's been compromised, and it's not just the QB stuff, but it's just contributing to the dysfunction, right? It's just missing the point. And what I should say here is to contrast the comments and negative comments or trolling comments or whatever I get on these videos. I don't have a personal relationship with people, right? I don't know them. They don't know me. So it's, some of them are trying to find ways that they can sort of get under my skin or find some sort of weakness and, undermine my, just put negative energy that I have to deal with instead of making the videos, right? And that I would doubt and, I would not make videos on a certain subject because they've poisoned it somehow, right? Undermined my, confidence in making a video or what I'm saying. And it doesn't work because they don't know me. They don't really, I mean, people think they know me because of, the stories I've told and the kind of person I am in these, in these video presentations, right? But, that's just, part of, it's like my job, right? It's me at work, And so, and I don't know personally people. I mean, I've met a few of the viewers and things, but, I don't really have relationships with you all, right? So it's not the same as my real life trolls. I have real life trolls, I have real life things that suck in my life, things that, are going in a way that I wish they wouldn't. Of course, my ex and, my family and things, and just, I mean, what happened with my, daughter's suicide last year. I mean, there's things that actually bum me out and get me down. And, just this are just sucky things, right? And, of course, now with the Heartfulness organization, I've just made a bunch of videos on 2 videos I'm going to release today and tomorrow in the Journey series about Mr. S and, the YouTube channel, the Heartfulness YouTube channel. And not that, like, I don't need the Heartfulness YouTube channel in terms of the videos. Like, it's just like other truther channels. I don't, necessarily need to watch all those videos, and it's not for my, personal disappointment of the suckiness of the Heartfulness YouTube channel. It's what it represents at a time when, Heartfulness should be expanding. It's supposed to be expanding and bringing in new people. And it's, there's ways that it's failing, right? And so there are things that are happening that sting me, that actually, emotionally affect me in a way that are a complete bummer, right? That just bum me out, like are just, oh, wow, that sucks. And, it stings for a day or two or even, less than that. And I just don't attend to it. And I just, go on with whatever I'm doing. I've learned that there's just a way to deal with things. Like when you get a shock to your system, something is like, bad news. And now, things like that don't bother me in that way, like emotionally or, getting a bad attitude or whatever, or get depressed or things like that. And I work for gratitude. I work for the idea that, this is, you go through bad things or miseries as divine blessings and there's a spiritual benefit. And, I fully believe that. So that helps with all this stuff. But when I look at just everything, what my personal interaction with the world the way it is now, and stuff to do with, the Heartfulness system, people I do know and have a relationship, and then what's going on in terms of the truth community, it seems like we're underperforming. Like there's the highest level we could be and the lowest level, and we're pretty close to the lowest level as we go through, this difficult time. And, the beginning of the difficult time, it hasn't really even started. This is like the prequel to things getting real, right? Like, a drastic change in our lifestyle and feeling unsafe in the world and all the, not having confidence in the system, economic collapse, war, all these things. And so that's a little bit of a bummer. The 2 things that I'm a part of, the truth community and the Heartfulness system and organization, are kind of bumming me out. Like that's, part of what's going on with me in these videos, these comment videos and things. And so that's why I'm including more comment videos and things in the last couple of days. And that'll probably explain this thing I did last night, this voiceover. And I'm going to listen to it now and see if it's worthy of inclusion in this video. And so here it is. So I just wanted to, end this video with something I haven't really talked about before. And it goes with my Journey series. I'll probably include this video in on the playlist for the end of it, right? Or just I'll cover this again. I'll just restate this again in some Journey series video. Because as Babaji says in the Whispers or the Brighter World Messages from the Heartfulness Meditation, that repetition is necessary for human beings. They have to hear the same thing. We have to hear the same thing over and over again. And so people complain about repetition, but it's necessary for us for whatever reason. And so I need to do more of it. I don't, like to, play Freebird. I don't like to do the same things over and over again. And, my bits and jokes and things and memes fall off after a while. But anyways, there's this idea of being somebody that other people want to be around, right? And I'm talking about this in terms of, I got a lot of flat earth comments in the past, 2 days. And this isn't about flat earth or not flat earth. This is about it's flat. It's flat, right? These comments that you get. It's a man. She's a man. These, I've talked about this before. The cubies were the worst at this. And it's really unpleasant. It's unpleasant when people just, spew out a bumper sticker slogan. They go to it's spamming and doing these things, right? Everybody dislikes spammers. Spammers suck. I could say this about Mr. S for those of you who have listened to my Journey series videos, who does Heartfulness. There's people in Heartfulness that just absolutely suck, right? That are just miserable to be around. Nobody likes them. And, it's just they have this energy that, and I mean this across the board, people who have energy that pushes people away. You get this a lot with Christian commenters, and then the good people who are flat earthers and, the good people who are Christian or cubies or whatever it is. Because there's good people in every movement. People who are reasonable, people who are, they might be wrong about the, what they're there about, but they're great to be around, right? People want to be around. There's people who just, people want to spend time with because it's fun. They're nice. They listen to you. I'm not saying I'm one of these people because I'm not, right? I'm not, trying to pretend to be something, but people still want to be around me because I'm interesting and I'm funny. And, there's people, like it's a small group. It's a small percentage. Like the people who come to my YouTube videos and like me and, there's people who really like me or really love me, and that's just a small percentage. It's like 10% of the 1 out of 10 viewers or whatever. I don't know. Something like that who resonate with me. Of course, I'm different and introverted, and it's probably people who are, different or similar to me in some way. I don't know. Right. But there are people who just everyone wants to be around, and it's because they radiate love and positive energy. The masters of the Heartfulness system, they walk into the room and it's hard to describe being around them, their presence, the love that emanates off of them. And so regardless of their personality or, how they act, I mean, Daji isn't nearly as people-oriented as Charji was. Babaji was, Lalaji, the four masters were all different in their personalities. But because they're constantly serving God and radiating God's love out, it feels good to be in their presence. Like people would wait outside the gate just to, get into the Master's cottage and spend some time with Master Charji. Daji's not as available, but it's the same thing. They have this energy, and when you feel it, it's miraculous. And it would be the same for Jesus or Buddha or any of these spiritual beings. And I know you think your guy is the guy, only guy, right? But it's the same, right? These saintly people, Krishna and all these various highly developed souls and people, you don't know their names are forgotten. But there's been higher developed souls, and because they're so, connected to God that they just radiate God's energy and people just flock to them and want to be around them and be like them. And because of that, you pull people up. It's also to do with the transmigration of the soul. It's a reason to have animals, livestock or pets and things, because your dogs and your, that love you, and your cat, whatever animals you have that love you, you'll pull them up to a higher level. Like they'll be incarnated as human beings in a future existence because they're drawn to humans. The same thing could happen to like someone like Jane Goodall or, you know, some of these people who go out and study animals and live with a, you know, pack of chimpanzees or whatever it is, gorillas in the mist, right? And they, you know, Jane Fossey, something like that, I don't know. But they have such a love for animals, they get pulled down to the animal kingdom because wherever you love, you become. Whatever you love, it creates a vacuum and you're drawn to it. And so one of the things about the heartfulness system is to find somebody who's on a higher spiritual level than you and associate with them, be around them, and they pull you up, right? And that's what the master of the system represents is, you know, your full potential, your realized self, your, you know, ability to, you know, to embrace your soul and become the best version of yourself, the one that God envisioned when you were created. And that's what it does for you, right? And so, you know, I've been talking about my work in treatment centers, and I had, you know, started this job, and it was like an entry-level job into the world of human services, right? And so my coworkers were like 23, 24, 25, whatever it is, right? They were younger because they had just graduated college, and I, you know, had failed. I quit college twice before, so I, you know, went on my own adventure. So I came back and completed college when I was 29, and I had started the heartfulness meditation, and I was really into reading about all these different philosophies, and I was learning how to, you know, take these teachings and manifest them into my life. And there was a situation, there was this one guy, he got hired, you know, one of the supervisors that worked there quit. You know, these jobs, people only lasted on average 9 months. And so the supervisor quit, and they brought this other guy up from this other cottage, and he was a disaster, and he got in this power struggle with one of the kids, and nobody really liked him. And there was two young women who both applied for the job, and they were both kind of bitter. And so, I mean, he was doomed to failure. He was a very fiery guy, so he quit. And so there was this supervisory position open, and I just had bought a new car, and I needed like a raise. You know, I needed more money. And so the job was mine if I wanted it. But this girl who had already been passed over once had been working there for 3 or 4 months longer than I had. And, you know, she was somebody who, if I got the job, she would have quit. And there was only like one other trained person there, and you needed people with experience. So, you know, I looked at the situation and I said, this is a disaster. If I take this job, I will, you know, I'll lose the only sort of good person that's been here. And, you know, I'll have to have all new staff. And, you know, I just didn't feel right about it. It was like my heart told me, don't take the job, right? Even though my boss wanted me to take it. And they didn't really like this girl for whatever reason. There was a person who ran the cottage, and then there was a supervisor on the other end of the week. And both these women were lesbians. And for whatever reason, they didn't like this other girl. They had some kind of, you know, issue with her. But I said, look, just give her the job. I'm like, it'll, you know, and I explained like how I felt about it. And they said, fine, you know, because they wanted to stabilize the cottage. Because of the turnover, it was always a mess. They were already stressed out enough as it was. So even though they didn't, you know, like this girl, and there's a, you know, some issues there, she didn't like that, know what's going on. This girl was named Joy or whatever. I've talked about people named Joy who have, you know, often are unhappy, which I don't know if it's a curse. If you name your kid Joy, they'll be unhappy, right? But so I said to this girl Joy, I said, look, I'm not going to take the job. I'm not applying for the job because, you know, she didn't know that, you know, whatever. I said I'm going to, you know, I suggested that you get the job, right? So she was really touched by that, and you know, because of that, like I ended up sort of running the cottage. She took all of my ideas, things that had to do with, you know, what I was learning about the heartfulness meditation. And, you know, she took my suggestions and they all worked. So it was like this, you know, blissful period because we ended up getting just a great bunch of staff, right? It was a great mix of, you know, different types of demographics of people. And we had one kid with, you know, I told the story about this kid who earlier, you know, with the Bob Saget thing, who got hurt on the kickball, right? And it was so messed up. He had a staff his agency would pay for a one-on-one staff to be with the guy, right? And so instead of having five staff members, we had 6, which was, just a phenomenal difference. We had 3 men and 3 women. It was a perfect balance. And, the ratio was 1 staff to every 3 kids. So there was 15 kids, so there was 5 staff, right? And it just, with 6 staff, it was just so much better. I can't explain, anytime you have more adults there, it's better. And the staff all balanced each other out. And the kids were always getting into restraints. They would act out, and, and once one kid saw another kid acting out and getting restrained, they said, oh, it's a way to get like one-on-one attention from an adult, even though it's negative attention. Plus, they just copycatted the other kids. And once they saw a kid do a behavior, all the kids would do the behavior, right? And also, a lot of the kids, when they felt bad about themselves, they were self-harming type of people. And so they wanted to get into a restraint and get hurt or whatever, was some way of them, like self-abusing. And so it's like they were re-experiencing their abuse and trauma. And so it was just sucky. The restraints were bad, and, it was just a chaotic environment. And I came up with this idea through the heartfulness meditation, this idea, that I talked about, where you hang out with the master of the system, or a saint, or a higher developed person. And we had a meeting, and I said to, my coworkers, I go, this is my idea, that, we're like cool people. Like my, staff was fun people to be around. And when you were like a little kid, or, like a, whatever it was, like, you're a teenager or something, you're 10, 11 years old, and you have other older brothers or sisters, older siblings, or, uncles or something, or somebody who was cool. Like you when you're a kid, you meet somebody who's cool, and they're like going to tell you the way it is, right? And like that was, to some extent, my brother was like that because he had fought Vietnam, and, my grandfather. And you would be around somebody that you looked up to, and they had influence over you, right? And they were teaching you how to be cool and how to be, a functioning person. I said, look, these kids have had, criminal parents and loser parents and abusive parents and, just the dregs of society. They've never been around people who are highly functioning, like who aren't crackheads or, whatever it is, right? They've never been around people who actually, obey the laws and like, are educated or whatever it might be. And I said, and they're around other kids like themselves, and they all influence each other. And, so all the people that they'd had in their lives were bad examples of what it was like to be a good human being, right? And I said, we need to do fun stuff. We need to do cookouts. We need to play sports. We had a grill. We need to take these kids places. And we got to show, like, what life can be. Stop, like, doing all this stupid stuff. And we would meet every Friday. We would have a double Saturday. And we would just, we'd have these, it wasn't really group therapy because you couldn't call it therapeutic. It was more like an older brother saying to a younger brother, or your uncle saying, hey, that was totally uncool. And we would just go around the room and just talk about all the goofy, like, stupid stuff each kid was doing and how it was immature, and it was just like shaming the crap out of them, right? It wasn't like therapeutic at all, but it completely worked. Like we had no restraints. And, the only way you could go off grounds if all the kids weren't on like restriction, they were on like, good levels, right? There was a level system. There's a behavior management system. And the kids needed to be on, one of the higher levels to get off grounds. And, we were like, well, we want everyone to go, right? It used to be only like you'd have 1 or 2 kids who were on high enough level to go off grounds. But there's cool things to do, places to go. And the place would pay for it. We had a big 16-passenger van or whatever it was, right? And we just used this idea of like, you're so uncool. Like, look at what you're doing. Like embarrassing them for their behaviors, right? And they started to do fun things. And we, ended up playing, like Ultimate Frisbee was the best game because they couldn't have physical contact. So we'd play other sports and, because of the whole, there are issues with abuse and all these things. But Ultimate Frisbee was a game where almost any kid, even this kid who couldn't, kick a kickball, we ended up getting him to catch a Frisbee, right? And it's not that hard to learn to catch and throw a Frisbee. It's a fun game. And we would run the kids. And that was the other thing. I said, we got to get these kids So they're exhausted. Like when I was a kid, I used to play sports and come home, so tired, there wasn't any sense of acting out. And these kids would always act out at bedtimes. That's why they were on these, sleeping pills and tranquilizers, because they were, that was the worst time for them. That's when they were being abused by their parents, would be drunk by then. And so they'd be in their room scared that their parents or whoever their abuser was going to come get them, right? And so it was a messed up thing. And, at nights were hard for them. But I said the cure for that is just play so much sports and get them so active that they, if they're so tired that they don't, they're just not going to get into restraints, right? And they would all be like sleeping by 10 o'clock when we left, which was like a miracle. And so it was this idea of, we're people that are higher up on the spiritual evolutionary plane of existence. And now we got to have these kids aspire to be like us instead of trying to pull us down to their depraved, criminal, frickin', abusive lifestyle and orientation to the world. And so if you have a movement, like if you want to bring people into your movement, I'm talking about the truth community, then stop being a frickin' douche, right? Like stop being a frickin' douche. Like, when you're talking to your friends, your relatives, the argument, being argumentative and petty and this idea, it's flat, it's flat, it's flat. Yeah, we know you think it's flat, shut the F up. You think if you say it enough times, it's like that someone making an annoying sound, right? Like, how is that comment going to work? Repeating the same thing, John 3:16. You think you say that enough, you're going to convert somebody to Christianity? You want to convert somebody, you want to bring people in, then be somebody that they want to be around. Don't repel them by being some frickin' douche that no one wants. I mean, I'm talking about, it's the same thing that who wants to hang out with Brian Stelza, right? Who wants to hang out with Weird Anderson Cooper and his, friend there on the, New Year's Eve, or Don Lemons, or any of these people on CNN? Like, who would want to hang out with them? Who would want to pal out with, Alec Baldwin or any of these, celebrity narcissists, right? I mean, yeah, they're famous, but are they likable? Like, if they weren't famous, would you want to hang out with any of these people? They're just annoying people. Like, if they were on Survivor, they'd be like the first ones voted out or whatever, some reality TV show. They're just, they're like the worst, right? Nobody likes them. And so if you want people to do your movement, then you have to be somebody that people want to aspire to be like, and, be somebody that people want to be around and, find interesting, right? Just not repel them. You got to realize, hey, it's not working. Why is everyone running away from me? It's because you suck, right? It's not their fault. Everyone's running away from you. Whether you better figure out why. I mean, I mock the shit out of people here. I mean, I read their comments and they still come back for more. They're still listening to my videos, right? Like, like I say things that, make people mad and people disagree with and offend people and butthurt them, and they still come back, right? Sometimes they come back and they even apologize and realize that they were jerks, right? Like 2 years later or something. Be somebody that people want to listen to and be around. Have something to offer people. Like, you have something that, that's what the transmission is, the heartfulness system, right? It's God's love. If you have like honey and chocolate to offer people on a, on an interpersonal level, and people are coming away with things, then people are going to want to be around you. They're going to, be a part of your movement. But if you just be a douchey truther, and there's lots of them. I mean, it's becoming more and more a douche movement, right? Like, and you guys all know what I'm talking about. I mean, the ones that, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you're the problem, right? There's a comedian, I think his name was Chris Porter, and he had a good comedy bit. He has a good show. I forget the name of it. He's like angry. It's some good stuff. And he's talking about how his sister's, a screw up. He didn't use the word screw up, but I'm not going to use the word here for obvious reasons. But he said every family's got a screw up. And if you don't know who it is, it's you. Right? And so, aspire to be somebody who, if you want to bring people into the truth community, then be the kind of person and, have the kind of community that attracts other people to it, right? And otherwise, you don't need to tell people. Either you're trying to bring people in or you're not, right? You're trying to win people over or you're not. I'm not. Like, I know if everybody's a truther, the system collapses. We need sheeple. We need people who believe in the official story. We need people who go along with the, with the lies and deception. If everybody wakes up, then the system collapses. And then what do you do, right? I mean, the system sucks and it should collapse. It's demonic. But, once it collapses, there's no backup plan. Most people don't have the skills or even, have a sense or the backbone or the spine to live in a world without all the comforts and things that we have now, right? And so I'm not in a hurry to wake everybody up, right? If people wake up, then great for them, right? I want people to, but I don't want them, right? I don't, I'm not preventing it, just like with the heartfulness system. People can come and go, right? And people who are, more desirable, like I don't want to bring in a bunch of, more douches and assholes into, the system, right? Although the system does help people change. And so, I just tell people what I tell people here, and they take it or leave it, right? It's not my problem what they do with the information, but I don't have any sort of expectations or agenda. I'm not trying to, expand the truth community or, expand even heartfulness in the sense that, it's a necessary aspect of the heartfulness system that the more people that do it, the more that it raises the vibrational level of the planet. And so that's kind of important. But, that's not up to me. Like, I can tell people about it, but what they do with it is something else. But either way, right, if you want to be somebody that people want to be around, again, I'm introverted, so I don't care. But I certainly, my wife and the few people that I, want to be around, you have to act in a way and be the kind of person that makes people feel good in some way or another, right? Radiate love to them, be whatever they need you to be, right? Become something where, you're giving bliss to other people instead of like shouting bumper stickers at people and wonder why they're running away and they don't want to be around you. And you're scratching your head in disbelief because they don't understand how brilliant you are, right? Only spirituality will save this M&F-ing world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.